Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown. Joining me is Andrew Meadows. And we have officially hit double digits on Watch, Review, Repeat. And to celebrate this momentous occasion, we have brought in a very special guest to the podcast. So Jordan Brown, welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Well, hello.
It's wonderful to have an official guest. Sorry, Pennywise, but you don't count. So Andrew, Jordan, how's everything been for you guys, I guess, this past week?
Oh, man, it was great. Blade Runner was so good.
I guess I'd say similarly, pretty good week. Blade Runner was great, and I'm happy to talk about it today.
Well, we're happy to have you along for the ride with us, because I think this is going to be, a pretty good episode, because we'll obviously talk about it a bit later, but I think I speak for all of us when I say that Blade Runner far exceeded all of our expectations, and I think our expectations going in were pretty high to begin with, so at least mine were, so it's some good shit, let's put it that way. But we got a bit of news that we want to catch up on, so we're recording this a little bit later than we usually do, because there was a Star Wars The Last Jedi trailer that just dropped during the Monday Night Football game between the Vikings and the Bears, and it is fucking awesome.
It's incredible. It's so good.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It was a pretty amazing trailer.
Did you see those walkers in the beginning? Holy shit. Oh, they look so cool. They got like gorilla hands, man.
I mean, just visually speaking, and this is an episode I think that's going to be very heavily focused on cinematography. I mean, Star Wars just looks outstanding. I'm excited to see where it goes narratively speaking, just from based on what, The Force Awakens set down for us, but just visually speaking, this thing looks awe-inspiring.
Oh, it's so cool, man. And then you have fucking Finn fighting Phasma and that reflective chrome shit, man. It was just so good. I'm so excited.
Yeah, Phasma's actually doing shit. Hopefully that's not her only scene in the movie, right?
I think most of her time in the first one was spent like in a trash compactor or something, right? So the last people that spent some time in a trash compactor had a pretty big role in Star Wars, so maybe she's just beginning.
That's true. And I think they're kind of buffing her role up, at least in the expanded universe. She has her own solo comic. I think it's a miniseries. I think it's only 5 or 6. I don't think it's an ongoing. I could be wrong on that. And then there was a book that just came out just about her.
Oh, that's cool. What's that called?
Phasma? Yeah. Yeah, it's very appropriately titled, I'd say.
And Mark Hamill was losing his shit, too, in this trailer. He's an emotional wreck.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of interesting components to this trailer. And I was talking to Jordan kind of briefly after we just finished watching the trailer. I wonder how accurate, the way that this trailer is constructed is to what the actual movie will entail. Because I feel like, at least in the case of The Force Awakens, Lucasfilm was pretty good about not, spooling out the entire story for you, beat by beat. So I have to wonder, we see a beat of Kylo pondering whether he should shoot down, presumably the ship that Leia's in, and I wonder if that sequence plays out exactly the way it was shown in the trailer. Same thing kind of at the end where Kylo is reaching out a hand for Rey, then, she says, I need someone to teach me or something like that. I wonder how much of this is intentionally misleading and how much of it is kind of true to what they're going to tell.
I know the director went on, Twitter and said, don't catch it, it's got spoilers in it, I think. Something along those lines?
More or less, yeah. It's Rian Johnson, the director. He basically said that if you want to go in absolutely clean, definitely avoid it.
Yeah, that's true with everything, I guess.
Exactly. That's not really any sort of noteworthy thing to say. And there is something, obviously, to be said for going in clean, for especially for something like this. But
I'm not going in clean.
Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part to think that, well, hopefully they didn't tell us everything that happened. I feel relatively confident that there's still probably plenty of surprises in store for this.
Doomhall wasn't in it.
Yeah, we didn't see any Doomhall Gleason in this as far as I can tell. Rose, the Kelly Marie Tran character.
Did you see her?
No, I think we saw her in the first trailer, but I don't think we saw her in this one. Or maybe it was the behind-the-scenes look that we saw her more in. But either way, I think there's plenty of things kind of left in store for this.
I like to avoid kind of exposing myself to too much, but I have a helpful habit of forgetting almost everything shown in a trailer, but it's certainly interesting, some of the plot beats it at least suggests. And then obviously with the Carrie Fisher situation, I guess to me it's interesting. You could see how they could edit the story, obviously knowing going in that they're going to have to change the story, at least in the next movie. So like you said, that scene where it suggests that he's thinking about, do I fire the shot? I mean, theoretically, that could be edited into a movie. I'm not saying that they would do that, but it's just kind of interesting that they've got the entire post-production of this content to deal with what they want to do with her character, in addition to explaining why she's just going to be completely absent from the next movie. So,
Right.
I'll be interested to see. What I like to do is, after the movie comes out, watch it on Blu-ray, watch the trailer afterwards. Just, it got me hyped up, but let's see what's different, what it suggested, what happened, what didn't happen, what scenes were suggested to be in the movie but actually weren't. Those kind of things I always find interesting to look at.
I've never done that before. That sounds cool. I might start doing that.
Well, I know that for The Force Awakens, I mean, kind of the big shot at the end of the first teaser trailer was Kylo walking in the snow and then igniting his lightsaber, and that wasn't even in the movie at all. I mean, there was obviously a scene that took place in a similar location with Kylo present, but for something that was such like a big reveal shot, for that to not be in the movie at all, and Rogue One is probably the poster child for shit in the trailer that never made it into the feature, because that one was a movie that went through some heavy reshoots. So yeah, I mean that is a fun concept to kind of play with. And well, we've got a ways to wait for the Blu-ray, of course, for this one, but I mean, this is coming out in basically just over 2 months from now. I think it's the 14th or 15th of December that it's dropping. So
I got a question. What the fuck kind of force power was Snoke using on Rey when she was like, it looked like she was getting like blown away, but she was in place, and it looked like she was getting, I mean, it just looked terrible. Like, it looked awful.
I think Kylo used something very similar to her in the forest on Takodana when he captures her. Doesn't he kind of hold her in place at some point? Kind of the way that he held the blaster bolt in place, kind of the beginning.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
I feel like he kind of invisible bonds kind of holding her. It's been, honestly, I don't think I actually rewatched The Force Awakens since the Blu-ray came out. It's one of those things I just, I don't watch movies over and over and over again. I do watch them fairly regularly, so I'll probably rewatch it before the new one. But my recollection is something like that, like kind of pinning her arms or something like that.
Yeah, it looked pretty awful. That motherfucker there's pretty scary. His face is all melted and stuff. But speaking of things I'm excited about, did you guys catch the Pacific Rim trailer?
Yeah, Pacific Rim Uprising. I think I mentioned last week that we were expected to get a trailer for this to coincide with New York Comic Con, and they delivered, of course. I don't know if this actually happened for you, but Jordan and I saw Blade Runner 2049 together, and they actually ended up playing the Pacific Rim trailer in front of it, which I did not expect. I knew they were coming out with the trailer relatively soon, but we saw it on a Thursday night, so I don't even think it was uploaded online until the following day. So that was definitely a pretty cool surprise for us to kind of catch in the theaters.
I don't think I caught it in IMAX, no.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting to see. It was unexpected. One of the dangers of going to the movie theater, aside from the advantages, is occasionally you've got neighbors. I had a particularly interesting neighbor that was distracting before and during the trailer. But on a second view, I did enjoy it more. It's certainly a different vibe.
Was your neighbor pretty hyped?
He was an older gentleman, clearly a chain smoker. I was very excited about Blade Runner, and I didn't understand what he mumbled about Pacific Rim, something about watching the original, but I don't know. He might have still been talking about Blade Runner, or he might have been talking about Pacific Rim, but I missed the first 15, 20 seconds pretty much. But like I told Colton, it looks like they certainly have gone full anime for this one, which obviously had inspirations, the first at least. I don't know. I mean, it's something I'm going to see day one. Pacific Rim is a movie that I absolutely loved the first time. I feel like it lacks some depth, so it didn't hold up quite as much on rewatches for me, at least. But at least that first viewing was a pretty amazing experience, and I still enjoy it, just not quite to that high that I got the first time.
Right.
But I'm excited to see it, and see what they do with it.
I would agree. It definitely looks more cartoony. Especially there's that one really bulky one with he almost has he's got the what the fuck is it called? It's called a morning star almost.
Yeah, a mace or a flail or something like that.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. I will echo the general sentiments both of you have expressed. I mean, when you think about the first one, basically all the major sequences we really got, aside from I think a flashback in Japan with Idris Elba's character, is that all the major kaiju Jaeger sequences took place in the rain, whereas this one seems to pretty much take place in broad daylight for most of the movie. And so a lot of people are kind of contributing that to kind of, the way that they move. I think it's a lot clearer to see, and maybe that kind of gets closer to the anime feel.
It affects the tone of the movie as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And plus, there's like a 15-year-old girl, it looks like, that's piloting a Jaeger at some point, which is a little Transformers-esque, which I guess is a little bit worrisome, but I'm definitely on board for this. There's no doubt in my mind. The lack of Del Toro, I think, being involved behind the camera definitely feels to me like we might be in store for a bit of a downgrade. But at the same time, it's not high art or anything like that. So
at the end of the day, you just want to see giant robots kick monsters' asses. That's all you want to see.
Yeah, and if the trailer's any indication, we'll get some of that, and we'll get some Jaeger versus Jaeger action for whatever reason. So
yeah, it almost looked like they had like a competition thing going down or something. It seemed, I don't know, it seems cool.
Honestly, I'm thankful we're getting a sequel. Even if it does end up worse than the first one. I think it's like kind of Jordan was saying. I mean, the first time fucking blew my mind. Just totally left me just totally speechless. And then you on further viewings you can kind of look back. Well, it's a little silly here and there. The writing's not so great,
but it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's still it delivers where it wants to deliver, and obviously Del Toro was less focused with the human aspect of it than he was with, hey, here's some awesome shit happening on screen. So that's some good shit. What's probably not going to be some good shit? We got a Justice League Heroes is what it's called. Heroes trailer is what it's called. I was showing Jordan some of the trailers that we're going to talk about, just so we can kind of all know what we're talking about. Everything, we're all up to speed. Jordan, could you repeat your reaction to the Justice League trailer after you watched it?
I think it might have been meh, something along those lines.
It was a little bit more enunciated. I think it was like a.
I think that might be right. Well, I hadn't seen it. I knew it had launched. I guess I just don't always seek out these things unless it's a movie I'm really excited for. I think it's a movie I'm going to see. I don't think there's anything that sold me on it as being a good movie. I'd say that there's some extremely overwrought looking action scenes that may still be a fun spectacle. Certainly seemed like they were trying to play the humor up a little bit, but didn't convince me that it's going to be a good movie. But like I said, they've already it's something that I'm going to see just because it's something that I'm interested in. But I certainly don't think that somebody that might be on the fence is going to feel differently after having watched it. And, seeing it 5 minutes after the Star Wars trailer didn't do it any favors for sure.
I thought it was funny. I watched it after looking at the things we were going to cover tonight. And Colton, you could hear me. And I said, oh no. And you immediately picked up on exactly the part of the trailer I was watching when I said, oh no, the CG looks so bad. I don't know.
My man.
Yeah, it's going to be, I don't know. It's going to be really rough. I think it's going to be terrible.
Momoa looks good for the role, but as far as the trailers for convinced me, he's just going to say like one-word catchphrases for the entire runtime. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, especially when he has to carry a movie on his own. I think he's talented enough to do it, although I guess the Conan movie, if anybody remembers that, might say otherwise. But I'm not sold on his character.
How old were you, Jordan, when Arnold played Freeze?
That was late 90s, right? So I would have been 10 or 12.
You probably ate that shit up. I'm curious. I ate it up. I thought it was cool when it came out. But do you think that people felt equally hateful towards it, like how I feel towards Justice League coming out?
I remember like the Phantom Menace. I think was like 1999, so it would have been 12. That would have been the same time frame. And these movies that I think like kids, not critics, just enjoying the spectacle and the ha-ha and the gags and the physical comedy. I think that like I probably enjoyed it the first time I saw it, but I think I quickly turned on it because it was very quickly apparent the critiques of it, and obviously still developing as a viewer at that point. But truly good films cross the boundaries of their target audience and provide something
That's true.
for everybody. And these provide something only for people, in that 10 or 12 and under range. So I think probably, it's probably a different situation just post-internet. There's certainly, just social networking and all that, but...
You just insulted, like, I would say a quarter to half the population of Zephyr Hills, by the way. I would like to point that out, because there's a lot of people in Zephyr Hills that enjoy these movies.
Well, I assume with that comment he was more referring to the Batman and Robin side of things. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I was more talking about those kind of kid-focused films.
Oh, okay. All right, never mind. I'm sorry.
I think there's an appeal to a popcorn film, and I think I can connect this to when I worked at a movie theater when I was younger, and I'd see everything because it was free, and I'd gauge it just on for what it was. I wouldn't go out and tell people it's a great movie. I'd just say, hey, it is a good popcorn movie, or is it isn't. I mean, even for free, some movies aren't good and worth watching, but I think some people are more critical than others, and some people become more critical than others, and some people just enjoy the ride and just enjoy spending 2 hours doing something different.
I don't think I'm going to enjoy this movie, though.
I kind of feel like we're at the point with these DC movies that we know walking in the door, like, just expect complete shit. And I wonder if you can, if you reframe your mind and your perspective walking in the door and just expect bad. And if you get anything that's slightly better than bad, like, it might actually seem good in comparison. I mean, I say that I think we walked in the door with Suicide Squad expecting the worst and somehow got even worse than that.
Yeah, it was.
So I mean, obviously, there, there's an argument against that has already been made. But I do feel, I mean, this one I think at least kind of leans more heavily into the popcorn movie tropes. I think kind of like Jordan was talking about, where
I could see that.
It might be fun to see these characters fighting some parademons, and I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't look good. Yeah, this trailer doesn't inspire any more confidence than what little we already had. So, yeah, we'll see it. Of course we'll see it, but
I think I'll see it with my movie pass, though. I won't spend the money to see it in IMAX, I don't think. I mean,
I pay less for an IMAX, so I'll probably do it just because I can, and it's not too much. But yeah, I mean, after I forced you to spend $20 to see Inhumans, like it's kind of in the same wheelhouse of sorts. It's just a higher quality version of that with a lot more money thrown into it. So yeah, well, it's that's a month away and change. So I guess for people that are looking forward to it, good for them. I hope someone enjoys this. I don't know exactly who the target audience is. I'm sure people enjoyed Batman v Superman, but it wasn't us. So I don't know what else to add on that. But our last bit of movie news for the week is that Sylvester Stallone has announced that he is going to direct the sequel to Creed. Now, I don't know about you guys, but Creed for me was one of the most amazing film experiences of, I want to say, 2015 when it came out. And unfortunately, that was the year that Mad Max Fury Road came out, which was just pure cinematic bliss. And so by default, that had to be my number one movie for the year. But Creed was a very, very close number two. And it hit me in the feels way more than I expected it to. And it is effectively a soft, I guess, kind of remake of the first Rocky, but it just fucking hit all those buttons. And it's one of the reasons that Ryan Coogler, the director of that, doing Black Panther, has me so fucking excited, because it just seems like a match made in heaven. I think Sylvester Stallone I think he directed Rocky Balboa, which is the 5th Rocky movie.
I think there's a Rocky movie that pretend doesn't exist, so I think the numbering system might be screwed up a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, maybe that was the 6th one. I think you might be right.
I'm pretty sure there was a Rocky 5. I'm not 100%.
I think you're right. Now you put it that way.
He directed the last Rambo though one, right?
I think so. The newest one, which isn't new at this point, I guess. But
did he direct any of the Expendables films, or did he just write and get those together?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think he directed any of them. I couldn't tell you who directed them off the top of my head, but I don't think he directed any of them. If he did, that's not a good sign. But
yeah, he directed the first one. He directed the Expendables, Rambo, Rocky Balboa, Rocky 4, Rocky 3, Rocky 2.
Shit, I didn't know he directed all those Rockies.
Well, I know that's kind of how he made his career was, I guess, I think it was the script for the original Rocky where he sold it for peanuts in order to be in the role. So it's always been kind of a personal thing for him. But I didn't realize he directed all those Rockies. That's actually pretty impressive. I'm not going to hate on him for directing Creed 2, but I feel like with at least the critical success, they would have tried to get Coogler back. I don't know if he wasn't interested, if he was busy, or if Sylvester Stallone, having right of first refusal, said, it's my turn to give it a shot. But I'll definitely give the movie a shot. I got on the Creed bandwagon a little late. I know Colton was telling me about how great it was, but I didn't catch it till Blu-ray, but I'm glad I did. It's a very good movie.
Yeah, I was the same exact way. I actually streamed it. I never even bought it. But when I streamed it, it was excellent. It was very good.
Part of the problem.
Part of the problem?
Yeah, just for the record, Sylvester Stallone was robbed of his Best Supporting Actor Oscar. Just putting it out there.
Who won that year?
Mark Rylance, Bridge of Spies.
I never even saw that.
I'm not going to discount Mark Rylance's performance. I'm just saying that fucking Sly was amazing in Creed, and so was Michael B. Jordan, who wasn't even fucking nominated. Ryan Coogler wasn't even fucking nominated for Best Director. Okay, that's weird, isn't it?
Are you trying to imply something?
Hollywood bullshit, maybe? Are you going back to Hollywood bullshit?
No, I would definitely not be implying anything at all. There's clearly no correlation there.
Hot fact here. Sylvester Stallone's alternate names is Q Moonblood. Did you know that?
I missed that. What was the name?
His name is Q Moonblood.
What?
Q like the letter Q or like
the letter
C?
Q? No. What? According to IMDb, his alias is Q Moonblood.
I can dig it.
I mean, Moonblood's a pretty badass name. Q, I'm not so sure on. Maybe he's a James Bond fan?
I don't know.
All right. Yeah. Well, that'll do it for the movie news. Yeah. Thank you for that hot little tidbit to end that on. That was well placed. Well placed, sir. All right. So we're gonna jump into the land of Marvel. We've got quite a few bits of news here covering them. New York Comic Con, they released a teaser trailer for the Runaways, which we saw a poster last week. We talked about that on the episode, and now we finally got an actual thing of footage here. So, Andrew, I assume you took a look at this?
I did. I'm actually pretty excited for it. I'm in the middle of American Vandal, and it's kind of in with it and American Vandal and all these other shows coming out and everything else with the Stranger Things right around the corner. This, I don't know, coming to age movies and stuff like that, and just these adventure movies. I don't know if that's what this is going for or not, but I don't know. I think I'm going to really enjoy it. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah. Jordan, what did you think about this one?
I don't know a lot about the property, and I don't think the teaser showed a whole lot. Interested, I guess, is where I would put myself on the spectrum, but we'll kind of wait and see what people say about it. Certainly a interesting, diverse cast. We got some black people, or at least a black person, an Asian person, somebody with purple or pink hair, and of course a raptor. So it really covers the spectrum pretty well.
Mm-hmm. The raptor really sells the diversity.
I don't feel like the teaser told me anything. I mean, I know the concept a little bit, but I don't feel like the teaser told me what kind of show I'm going to get. So I mean, I'll wait and see, and I'll probably check it out.
Not quite sure what the parents were doing with that girl over there, though. Kind of looked like she was screaming. She was naked. And I assume I think she was naked. I don't know. It looked a little weird.
So some weird shit going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks interesting. Yeah. I mean, I agree that the teaser doesn't really leave us with a whole lot as far as kind of what the show will entail, but it did set up, I think, the general concept of it pretty effectively. And I'm
still curious to see who the villains are, who the parents play.
Yeah. I agree. I do wonder kind of, I assume we'll probably get a lot more depth as to far as kind of what they're up to and who they are and all that stuff. So I think I did look it up after our episode last week, and I think they're all original characters for the Runaways comic. So I don't think there's any pre-existing Marvel villains that will get introduced by way of this show. So it seems like it'll be pretty self-contained, even though I think it will technically still be part of the cinematic universe. But again, with the TV and movie lines, it really doesn't matter. In other Marvel news, Luke Cage Season 2.
Danny Rand?
Danny, my boy. Danny, the thundering dumbass, also known as the immortal Iron Fist, protector of Kunlun, sworn enemy of the Hand, a few other titles, Mother of Dragons, perhaps. Yeah, he's coming in. He's coming into Luke Cage season 2, which I'm pretty down with. I got to be honest.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody likes more Danny Rand. Why would you not like to see Danny Rand?
I find myself having a difficult time caring about anything done with a Danny Rand character at this point.
What the fuck are you trying to say? You don't like Danny Rand?
This comes from a guy who actually owns an Iron Fist t-shirt. So, I mean, he's not my favorite character, but I enjoy especially the Immortal Iron Fist arc that he had. A lot of potential, obviously squandered, which you guys have talked about. I wouldn't say ad nauseum, but a few times.
Danny Rand is our favorite character on this show. He's our favorite recurring character that we like to talk about.
Yeah, so he got a little bit better. I would assume that Scott Buck will not be returning to further tarnish his character. Obviously not for Luke Cage or Iron Fist season 2, hopefully. He has potential still. I mean, I think that they've set him so far back with his own show that he'll never reach his mountains. But you know, the eroded mountaintops that are the highest he can reach at this point, hopefully he'll get closer to those.
Your childish insults grow tiring.
Yeah, fucking Danny Rand.
Danny. All right, you're right. We do talk about Iron Fist, but I had to include it. I mean, it's technically a pretty big piece of news. We're getting the Heroes for Hire in a Luke Cage show.
That's huge news, man. I can't wait till Luke Cage season 2, solely for the fact of Danny Rand.
Well, we got Luke Cage and Jessica Jones season 1, obviously. I was trying to think, I mean, this is the first kind of post-Defender show, as far as we know, that's really having any sort of big crossover with these characters, and I don't think we know how long or how involved he'll be in the show. I assume he'll probably be in it only a few episodes max, but you know, at the same time, it makes sense for these characters to be involved in each other's lives after the offense of the Defenders. So I'm hopeful that this is a sign of things to come, where they just go back and forth throughout the shows as they go.
I would be down for canceling Iron Fist season 2, replacing that with Punisher, and just doing a Luke Cage and Iron Fist, but mostly Luke Cage show. I could dig that.
Yeah, Heroes for Hire. I'm definitely on board with that. We could also greenlight a Daughters of the Dragon show, Misty Knight, Colleen Wing. I'm also okay with that.
I don't know if I'm down with that.
Okay, well, you're fired. Get out of here.
Put them all in one, and I can dig that.
I'm down with having a Luke Cage fight all the different people, like the tournament.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, fucking Iron Fist. It's just, yeah, I agree with Jordan. He's just set so far back that, like, and I think you and I and our friend Henry had a conversation about, like, okay, what are the steps we can take to fix this character? And I think we built like this big 3 or 4 season grand arc, and it's just like, boy, like, why didn't they just do that right off the bat, instead of we have to hypothetically construct a 5 season arc to repair his character, not to make his, not to, reinforce his character and really, build his character, just to fucking repair it. And it's just,
he was actually in the cave the entire time. He hasn't left the cave yet. It was all a dream. That might work.
There we go. Scott Buck, you're out. Jordan, you're in. It's already a better show. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that is more than enough news for this week. It's time. It's time for us to talk Blade Runner 2049. And I guess before we get into Blade Runner 2049, I'm curious to see how you guys approached your whole viewing experience to Blade Runner. So I know, Andrew, we kind of talked about, we're gonna do the original, we're gonna watch the shorts, then go into it, and that's what Jordan and I did when we walked into it. Did you get a chance to revisit the original before you watched the sequel?
I revisited the majority of the original, and then I did not catch any of the shorts, so I fell flat.
You mean you've obviously seen the original before, and
I've seen the original many times. It's probably one of my favorite movies. I really like it.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of wanted to just bring it up because I mean, Blade Runner 2049 obviously does stand on its own, but it builds so greatly, I think, on what the original brought to the table, and it really kind of uses elements from the first one to maximum effect, I would say. So I was just curious to see how everyone kind of what their kind of thoughts were on the original, so we can kind of use that as our framework going forward for our thoughts on 2049. So I know, Andrew, you say it's one of your favorite movies. That's obviously high praise. Jordan, kind of where do you stand on Blade Runner?
Blade Runner's an interesting thing for me. I think I was talking to you earlier about it, and it's like, so Andrew says it's one of his favorite movies, but I think it's a hard movie to share with other people. A lot of times when you're, be it showing somebody a clip on YouTube, oh, this video is funny, you're kind of watching them for their reaction more than you're watching it, and you're invested in them liking something that you like. But Blade Runner, and I think 2049 as well, is really kind of a mood piece. It's very atmospheric. It's not fast moving. It's a slow burn. And I think that you need to be in the right mood for it. So I don't know when I first saw Blade Runner. Obviously, it was a little bit before my time when it was originally released. And I know that I've seen the director's cut and the final cut, but it's been too long since I've seen those. And I think that I've seen at least part of the theatrical cut with the voiceovers. But again, not watching movies over and over again. It's just I don't have the interest, I guess. I mean, obviously I could make the time to watch a 2-hour film 3 times close enough together to really critically look at the differences. So the last few times I've watched it, I've watched the final cut, and just one of those occasions when I watched it, it really clicked with me. I think you said maybe the last podcast or the podcast before, Mad Men is maybe your favorite show, and I don't really like to do favorites because I'm never thinking about everything that I've seen when I'm trying to make a list of what I really enjoyed, but it's definitely up there for me as well. And it's a slow burn, and there's a mood to it, and there's a quality to it that's hard to describe, or at least for me, hard to describe. And I think you can't share Blade Runner with somebody that isn't. I guess it sounds like I'm talking about a religion at this point. You can't give it to somebody who's not ready for it, not interested in it, because I think they need to be in the right place to really enjoy it because of the way that it is. And I know that's a long way of saying nothing, but just because the atmospheric nature of it, I feel like 2049 had a lot of the atmosphere and built that. And obviously we're going to talk about that with the cinematography and the score and all that. And I feel that it's really a very good movie, but you need to be in the right place to really appreciate it, because if you're not in the right place, you might just think it's dragging on a little bit too much. But I really enjoy it. I'm not huge on sci-fi. I'd say I'm probably more like a fantasy type guy as terms of like what I read, what I have read. But I've had bits and pieces here and there, like, I've read The Forever War and, Starship Troopers I always kind of liked back in the day. And so just pieces of it, not necessarily hard sci-fi. Obviously Star Wars, which is sci-fi fantasy, more fantasy, just in a futuristic setting. It's different than all that. It's kind of a cyberpunk feel to it, kind of dystopian future, near future, I guess, in the case of the original Blade Runner. But it's certainly an interesting piece, and I do enjoy it. I just think there's it's
so thought invoking.
Yeah,
and that's I agree with you on the plane that it's hard to share with somebody else, because just the content of the movie is it's very rooted in the thought invoking material that it brings to the table. You know what I mean? What it is to be human, and what is the purpose? You know what I mean? And it's just so deep. It's so good. And I thought those similar tropes were brought over into 2049 in an excellent way. It did a good job of carrying over the cinematography and the score and just the style of the original film, but the tones and the just the story and everything that the original was trying to portray, I thought it slammed it home again. And I don't know, I thoroughly enjoyed the second movie as well. Very good stuff. What'd you think?
Well, I think, just kind of briefly wrap up our thoughts on the first Blade Runner. I think you guys have pretty much covered everything that needs to be covered with it. It's a slow movie, and I can understand why people would kind of maybe find it ponderous in its approach to filmmaking, but it is something that, for me, and I guess really for all of us, it really does just kind of leave you awe-inspired by it. And you look at the impact that it's had on really the genre from that point on. It's groundbreaking in terms of kind of what it brought to the table visually, atmospherically. It's something that I think kind of struggled out the gate in terms of box office success and stuff like that. So I think it took a while for it to really kind of become rooted and provide the impetus for a lot of the inspirations that it eventually did make. But it's just a really, really, really well made, really good film. And Blade Runner 2049, it just fucking carries the torch. I mean, honestly, just sitting and watching the movie for me was just pure joy watching it. Like this is what I go to the theater for, is to sit there and just
drop your jaw.
Yeah, I mean, just every little bit of detail that was poured into this movie is just it's pure love and joy from the filmmakers, from the cinematographer, from Hans Zimmer and Benjamin Wallfisch who did the score together. It's a 2 hour and 44-minute movie, and you really don't see a lot of movies that really have the sort of pacing that this movie had. I mean, it's very deliberate, it's very methodical. A lot of movies these days are very quick with their editing style, and this is not that at all. It lets you sit there and absorb everything in the frame, and it just evokes this beautiful, amazing atmosphere that I can't think of a movie that has really enraptured me quite the way that this one did in recent memory. I guess Mad Max Fury Road would probably be the most recent one, and that was more of a wham bam movie in terms of action, where this is much more of a sit back and we'll give you some real heavy and deep shit to think about. So two very different approaches to filmmaking, both I think executed to technical perfection. So yeah, I mean, this for me hit all the right buttons. How did you guys feel about this?
I really enjoyed it. I guess to me it kind of felt like, obviously very much a Blade Runner sequel, but it kind of felt like the same thematic material with a new plot line. But I guess I want to say for a more modern sensibility, I feel like as a film, it has more of a mass appeal, or at least an appeal more to today's audience. But at the same time, I think exactly what you're talking about. I guess you said a 2 hour, 44-minute film. And a lot of times you talk about a movie you enjoy and you say, well, it just feel like it flew by. In this case, it's a long movie. And to me, it felt like a long movie. And usually when I say that, it's a movie that I'm not enjoying and I'm wanting for it to end so I can leave. As somebody who's never walked out of a theater, there's been a few times where I felt like it just because I'd rather be doing something else. But I enjoyed all of it, in particular the score. And I guess I'll say now, in case I forget to say later, I tend to be a big picture kind of guy. I don't tend to notice the elements that come together to compose the whole so much as the whole. But the score here absolutely nailed it. The long shots. I feel like obviously you can cut plot to cut time, but this is a movie that they could have cut from probably every scene, several seconds of beginning and end of kind of just a long shot, kind of showing things happen and characters' reactions just played out longer than you'd expect. You could probably cut 20 or 30 minutes of film time there. I'm glad they didn't, because I think all those small notes were really well hit and well done. But I think, that's basically what I thought about it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm actually pretty excited to go see it again. I may do that this week, just see how I feel about it on a second run through.
It hit me in a big way, especially from that first, just that first frame of the eye opening. And then it goes over those solar panels or whatever that is there in the beginning. Just that opening shot, I was like, holy shit, we're in for a treat. It's going to be good. It just didn't stop. The whole movie, it was just so good. And it was so thought-invoking and just, you said it best, it just hits every single button. And it's really worth seeing in an IMAX theater. It just, especially with the sound design and everything else, man, it's incredible. It's an incredible movie.
We actually did not get to see it in IMAX, unfortunately, so I feel like that's got to be the way to experience it, especially with that score.
You have no idea. There's there in the very beginning, the police car goes over the frame, you know what I mean? It goes into the center of the shot and it goes on. Just the sound and it's just beautiful. I can't I've had a couple of drinks, so I can't really say what I'm trying to say. I can't find the words.
Can't wax poetic.
Yes, but for lack of a better term, the whole movie is just incredible. The sound design, you can tell that so much care was poured into the movie. And if you go see it in the loudest theater you can with the biggest picture you can, and you walk away with just a thorough experience, and it's all conveyed so well. It's a really good movie.
Denis Villeneuve, the director on this, is got to be probably the best working director in Hollywood right now. I mean, this man has given us Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival. I mean, that's just an insane resume, and especially when you look at the span of time that those movies come out in. I mean, this guy is constantly working on something, and each one is just astounding in terms of visuals, in terms of really everything. And so I got to give him full credit on this, because it's a wonderfully acted movie. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie. And it's like you said, just so much love and care went into this movie, and you can tell that, pours out of every frame. You can feel it. You really can feel it. And of course, I have to give Roger Deakins, the cinematographer on this, his due, because I would be shocked if we see a more visually stunning movie this year, or really for a while. And this is a guy that has had a ridiculous film resume and has not been awarded in terms of Academy Awards for his efforts. And if he doesn't get an award for this, he's going to be fucking robbed, because I'm trying to think of anything that we saw this year that really even comes close to matching this. And I just looking at the schedule for the upcoming releases this year, obviously I'm excited about a lot of things coming up, but in terms of really kind of matching what we got here, I don't know what can.
Justice League's going to take it.
Justice League.
They cinematographically compose all the CG in those scenes. I mean, it's a lot of work to get all those little parademons in the scenes, so you just need to appreciate.
Copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste.
Let's say, do it the old George Lucas way. Just find one model, copy and paste it the whole way.
Going back to the score, though, it's a very well-made soundtrack.
It is, and it really obviously evokes a lot of the elements that Vangelis brought to the first Blade Runner. So credit, obviously, where credit is due there, and that it is very heavily inspired by its forerunner. But it does just accentuate every little moment that happens in this movie, and it's something for me that if I'm cruising anywhere late night, blasting that on the stereo sounds fantastic. So, this is just an incredible cinematic achievement, I think, across the board. We'll kind of get into the fine details, I think, of the storyline, which I think is definitely best saved for our spoiler section, and I think it knocks it out of the park with that. And then obviously, just technically speaking, incredible. You said it. So, you guys have any kind of last minute thoughts that you want to add before we jump into spoilers?
It was incredibly well acted.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Harrison Ford showing up and giving a shit is always nice to see. So
yeah, he was wearing a t-shirt, but I'll take it.
He was, but to be fair, I think she was just kind of lounging around. So I saw that in the trailer, and I was just like, really, they couldn't put him in some tacky ass suits like he was wearing in the first one?
I think I had to point out to Colton who'd maybe kind of missed the important details of what he was wearing in the original movie, which I don't know exactly what the inspiration was for the thought that people would willingly wear those clothing things in the future. The tie and shirt combination he has when he comes back. I think it's when he comes back with Rachel after Leon and the snake lady, whose name is Zora, I guess. And it's very clearly shown the monstrosity that they dress him in for that movie. So I think probably his contract dictated that they weren't allowed to put him in anything like that, and he was required to wear a t-shirt.
For Harrison, we'd like him to fly off of his personal plane and walk onto set and film in exactly what he is wearing when he gets off the plane. Are you saying that's what's written in his contract?
I think it might be. We have to entice him how we can nowadays, and I think he had certain contractual requirements to be in the new Star Wars film, and I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about those. I feel like the statute of limitations on Star Wars spoilers expires pretty quick. I think he required a certain death in Force Awakens, and I think he required a certain level of comfort that he's become used to as a very famous, very wealthy individual who's being asked to revisit his glory days.
He's a notoriously very cantankerous man, I think. So this just kind of fits into that.
I love the late night show personality he has, because I think it's an act, but I'm not sure, and that's what I like about it. Like I think he's naturally a little bit grouchy.
Yeah, I think it's just a hyper realized version of himself.
Yes, that's the impression I get, but I love it.
I love the fact that he actually he punched. I read about this somewhere, or listened to it, or whatever. I don't know, but he punched Ryan Gosling in the face. I think I read that somewhere, and then it makes me question: was that really an accident? Harrison, did you just punch him in the face?
Whoops.
Either way, we can move on to the spoilers when you guys are ready.
Well, I guess to say, since we're on the topic of acting, I know this is something that Jordan kind of mentioned to me when we were walking out. Sylvia Hook's love character, she was great. I mean, everyone was great. Gosling was great. Ana de Armas as Joy was great. I mean, everyone across the board was fantastic. But I know, Jordan, you mentioned to me that you really kind of found the love character very interesting. And
I really like the character.
I like Joy's character a whole lot. And she's pretty easy on the eyes, too. She's pretty easy on the eyes. I like Joy a whole lot.
Yeah, you can say that again. Okay, spoilers?
Spoilers.
All right, so full spoilers. Blade Runner 2049. I gotta say, there was a lot of things in this movie that really took me by surprise. For me, I think it's a credit to the marketing for this movie that did a great job of selling the atmosphere and not putting all its cards on the table as well. I mean, right off the bat, and it's not a huge surprise or anything, but we learned that Ryan Gosling is a replicant. And I don't think that was really ever explicitly told in the marketing material. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I didn't see that coming at all.
I did not know. I think, Colton, you told me coming out of the movie that, or maybe I saw it online, I can't remember, that there's a scene in the trailer where apparently he's running through the wall later on in the movie, and that was in the trailer, but I didn't take it frame by frame, and I have my previous habit of not remembering a lot of things, even though I guess I like compartmentalize and kind of just enjoy what's in front of me. So I didn't know, but I had suspicions, and the reason I had suspicions is Ana de Armas, which obviously she's kind of set up as the girlfriend character in the marketing material. She's like not in it at all in the trailers, and then there's the giant hologram, and that looked like her to me, but I wasn't sure. And then I think I was on IMDb a week or so before the movie came out, and I saw his character's name was Kay, and so I had suspicions, but I wasn't interested in researching and possibly spoiling a plot point. So I don't think they revealed it necessarily in the trailers, but I don't think they did everything they could have to hide it either. But I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed that it wasn't coy about it. It just came out and did it.
Yeah. I mean, it was very, very casual reveal right off the bat. And so, I mean, I think that was kind of the first moment for me where I was just like, oh shit. Okay.
I appreciated that contrast from the first movie to the second movie. You know what I mean? From now we're telling a story from a replicant's point of view.
Well, I thought Deckard was a replicant.
Well,
whoa. Time for a 30-minute conversation about whether Deckard is a replicant or not.
To quote Harrison Ford, who gives a shit?
To quote Ridley Scott, here's a 30-minute bullshit thing about Jesus and Michael Fassbender fingering flutes, and Guy Pearce being an old man for no reason, and I'm old and senile, end quote from Ridley Scott. But Ridley Scott does maintain that Deckard is a replicant, just FYI, which to me is evidence that he is not.
Well, I don't even know if Deckard's a character in the source material. I know it's inspired by the story, but I don't know. Okay. What I will say is certainly there's hints, there's allusions, there's the unicorn dream, and then the unicorn. How does I can't remember the character's name, almost his character.
Oh, Gaff with the unicorn origami, and there's the consistent
lighting across the eyes, which is obviously not like an actual physical manifestation. It's just a clue for the audience, because why do you need the void comp if they've got a glow in their eyes? So I think they're certainly signaling, but it ultimately doesn't really matter. I would say it's not logical for Deckard to be a replicant because he has none of the advantages of being a replicant. Ryan Gosling, for example, or that Harrison Ford's character with Sapper at the beginning, it would have been a very short movie because some of the things that Gosling's character went through, a human would not have been able to survive. And Deckard certainly doesn't have any special strength. And it's clear that they're programmed differently. Some are sex robots and some are soldiers. And I think Leon's character was like basically a builder / mover. So they've got different purposes, but he's got no special strength. He doesn't seem to be especially intelligent. He just seems like a normal, average person. So I don't know that it makes sense for him to be a replicant. I don't understand what the logic would be there. But it doesn't matter, other than, I guess, the next big twist of the film, the true plot of the film that was completely concealed by marketing about Deckard's child. Is it a human replicant or is it a replicant? I guess that's kind of an interesting question that also doesn't matter, but I just don't think it really matters if Deckard's a replicant. And I kind of like the way they handled it, where it's never really addressed because it doesn't really matter.
You know, now that I think about it, so I mean, we're in the spoiler section, so this is obviously jumping ahead quite a bit, but you know, we get the reveal about his daughter, but the reason that his daughter is still on world is because she has some sort of illness, right? That prevents her from being able to travel off world, kind of like most humans would.
Or perhaps that's the way it was contrived.
I guess, yeah, I guess it's one of those things that could just be easily explained away as well. That's just the way that you know, she's constructed, and that's why she's there. I was just trying to think, it was like, well, I guess that could indicate that she's human if she has something like that. But yeah, it's like you said, I guess it could be programmed, right?
And I've got certainly a few qualms about the movie, like things that didn't really make sense to me, and I'm sure they'll come up, but just like in general, like Kay, how does he get these memories but also be a Blade Runner? And then is that the setup? And obviously they're trying to conceal her, but they send her to an orphanage that sells children. Like, how is she going to be safe there? So there's certainly things in it. If you guys know, I mean, as we come up to them, I don't mean to jump to those points, but just while I was thinking about them, I wanted to mention them. So I don't think it's a perfect movie, and certainly there's some plot issues that I have, but it's possible I'm just dumb.
Well, it's also a 3-hour movie almost, and I think it's a very dense movie, so I probably some of the minor grievances I feel might be addressed by repeat viewings. So obviously that's nothing any of us can speak on, given that we've all only seen it once. But I do agree there's probably bits and pieces. And Jordan and I are speaking about a movie that I guess we watched basically 4 days ago at this point. So obviously details here and there are, you know, our memory is obviously not going to be the best as far as recalling certain things and why certain things may have happened when perhaps there was a relatively clear explanation that we either just missed or forgot. So how did you guys feel? I mean, I for one, was totally taken off guard by the fact that this whole story revolves around Deckard having a kid with a replicant. Like, that's just such a really interesting concept. And nothing that I expected to really kind of think about walking in the door to see this. But I mean, it was basically what drove the plot through the entire movie. And I think it's such a clever idea. And I think that the way it really shapes the arcs for basically, for most of the characters involved, some of the character arcs are kind of, you know, dependent on other things. But certainly in the case of Kay, Deckard, even Niander Wallace, Jared Leto's character, I mean, they're all very much around this idea that a replicant was able to reproduce. You know, the first Blade Runner brought a lot of really interesting and compelling themes and ideas to really talk about. And this one really, I think, continues their tradition. And it does it in a way that it doesn't rehash a lot of the ideas of the first one. It brings new ideas to the table. It feels like a real proper follow-up. And Star Wars right now is probably the easy go-to in terms of kind of direct comparisons, where you think about, you know, this is a movie that picks up 30 years after the fact and picking up with some of the characters that we've already seen. Obviously, Harrison Ford is something that's in common with both of them as well. And where Star Wars kind of played it safe, I think, with reusing a lot of the same ideas and themes, I think this one basically took those ideas and then just brought it to the next natural level instead of kind of trying to do the same thing over again. So, obviously it's a different approach. I'm not saying one is necessarily better than the other, but I felt like this one, for me, by bringing new things to the table, was more effective in its approach anyway.
Like, for example, the biggest thing with me, I actually very much enjoyed Leto's character. There's a theme that was present in the first movie that I didn't quite catch, but I caught it with this one, where the owner of these replicants, or the mass producer of these replicants, resides in a pyramid-style structure. And, you think about, Egyptians and all, and how the pharaohs were considered gods among men, you know what I mean? And now you have Jared Leto's character, who is very much bent on being a god among men, you know what I mean? And I didn't catch it in the first one, but I caught it. It was very heavy in the second movie, and it really drove home a point for me. It was really interesting. And then the fact that he's seeking out the child of a replicant, a human, or potentially a human, or whatever it is. I don't know, but
the movie makes the point that it doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. I don't know, man. It hit a lot of chords that I didn't necessarily pick up in the first movie, but it was very much accentuated in a way to where I caught it in the second one.
I think it's probably a little more on the nose and direct about the thematic ideas than the original was. Maybe a little more
probably
subtle,
for sure.
But the general concept to explore is what it means to be human, and I think it's interesting how it's explored through the characters. Kay goes from basically being the prototypical top-level Blade Runner, hunting his own kind, if you will. I like how it added I guess primarily in the shorts, kind of set up a situation where the eighth generation were basically, because of the blackout, unknown, and other than the eye markings, you couldn't distinguish them from a normal human. They aged, they had natural lifespans, and so they are practically indistinguishable from humans. You've got the child, the ability to conceive, making them essentially different from humans. Niander Wallace's character seeking out how to do this because he wants to create that army of slaves to, I guess, build that pyramid, if you will, to create more. Joy, I guess we'll talk about Joy later. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with Joy, and I think there's more to talk about that in the context of what I'm talking about. But Love, even, obviously she serves Wallace, but she shows that she kind of skirts the rules, and like her passion for obtaining the child seems like maybe she actually has different motivations than Wallace, being a replicant. But then also the contrast of the orphanage, where there are actual humans that are treated like trash. So what does it mean to be human when humans are indistinguishable, and humans are treated as refuse, but somehow replicants are lesser? I guess going back to, what are they called, the different generations? There's a word that I'm...
Nexus?
Nexus, yeah. So one thing I was curious about, and again, I don't know if I missed this, is Nexus 6, that's in the original movie, right? Nexus 6 is Batty and Zora and all them, and then Nexus 8 is the generation that had the natural lifespan. So Nexus 7, is there ever a Nexus 7?
I mean, I don't know if Rachel is definitively defined as a Nexus 7, but she seems like she's certainly a prototype that is more advanced than the Nexus 6. So 6S or 7 or 7S or something like that.
Yeah, I didn't know if maybe that was like a hint, like maybe this leaves a Harrison Ford, a Deckard character as a Nexus 7 replicant, and maybe they're both Nexus 7 replicants. So I just thought maybe that was like a, hey, here's this little nugget of information that maybe he is a replicant that you can latch onto. But I just, the way it explored the theme I thought was very interesting, with different characters meaning different things. like an actual child versus wanting to be that child versus wanting an army of slaves versus just a passion, whether it's loyalty motivated or whether it's for something more. I just thought it was really interesting the way the different characters thought about the central plot point, which I again felt was very well concealed from the marketing. I don't remember what I thought the movie was about, but obviously something happens and he needs to see Deckard, Harrison Ford's character, and obviously that doesn't even happen until a couple hours into the movie. So it's very interesting to me that it was concealed, and then I think it's obviously the central idea and explored through all the characters.
Yeah, I mean that it is interesting that Deckard does not appear probably literally until 2 hours into the movie. I have a plot summary that I looked up, and it says a Blade Runner's discovery of a long buried secret leads him to track down a former Blade Runner, Rick Deckard, who's been missing for 30 years. So I mean that's pretty true to, I think, to what we saw in the trailers. There was a lot of Deckard in the trailers. We kind of see that Vegas meeting between Kay and Deckard, but in the context of the movie, I mean, there's 2 hours of time that is unaccounted for basically by that trailer, and obviously see bits and pieces of that, but we don't really know how that fits together. There's a lot there that the marketing just did a really great job of not showing, and I really love that. I'm glad that was the case. But I mean, that 2 hour span that we do get, I mean, Kay goes through a pretty big fucking arc where, it's like you said, he's just kind of your regular Blade Runner who are now definitively replicants because they're now obedient and they're not at risk of, I guess, rebelling against the humans theoretically. And then, he kind of toys with this idea that maybe, the quote unquote, I guess, kind of the chosen one, if you will, maybe he's the child of Deckard and Rachel, a potential human replicant hybrid, which, as I think Robin Wright's character puts it, breaks the world. And it is kind of a big idea and concept that it becomes natural for all these characters to become intertwined because it is something that really could, swing the axis of how this Blade Runner universe could operate.
It's interesting though. He always had joy though, even prior to him being just a run of the mill guy or a run of the mill replicant, so to speak. He still went home to joy, which is a piece of humanity that a normal run of the mill robot probably shouldn't be able to.
Well, and I think that K is a Nexus 9 model, if I'm not mistaken. So I think with the Nexus, possibly the 9s, possibly the 8s as well, but I think I guess kind of the new wrinkle that they added for those ones is that they have the implanted memories, which I don't think that the original Nexus 6s that we saw in Blade Runner really had. They had their 4-year lifespan, and I think that in the case of Roy Batty and his crew, I think kind of where they were a little bit off the rocker is that they rebelled and they didn't really have any sort of memories to form these empathic responses that could that would help them pass like a Voight-Kampff test to evade detection as replicants.
Well, Rachel did though. Rachel had implanted memories. That was the whole deal with the pictures and stuff.
Which she was a more advanced model though.
Yeah, she was a Nexus. We talked about.
Let's say potentially 7, but she was either something beyond a 6 anyway. Which is definitely beyond what we saw with Batty and his company. So
I think they specifically say the short life term is because they would start to develop kind of an emotional response.
Right.
And then I guess what you're saying makes sense too. Like they don't really know the appropriate emotional response, and certainly they don't act right. I think they steal a ship and murder everybody on board it. And
well, you kind of see it. I mean, we see Kowalski going through the Voight-Kampff test in the first one. He's questioning every little detail of it. Like he can't quite wrap his head around the questions that are being asked. And actually, I'll tell you what. I read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I finished the book before I sat down and watched the first one, and there's actually a scene in that is kind of, I think probably what the Kowalski scene is very heavily inspired by, where they're called Andes in the book, but it's the same thing as a replicant, where Deckard is questioning someone, and she's very much just kind of questioning the nature of all his questions in an attempt to kind of get around it, because they know that they can't properly evade the detection, so they're just kind of working their way around it. So it's interesting to see, and obviously I guess the void conf doesn't really apply in the 2049 where we see them now, because they have these memories implanted. And Andrew, as you mentioned with Kay and Joy, clearly he's got, Kay is not really special in this regard, in the sense that he has these memories that are, I guess, designed. I mean, we know that the character that we know eventually find out is Deckard's daughter. I mean, she basically designs memories which are supposed to be imagined, and not supposed to be real, which clearly she doesn't quite follow the rules in that regard. But the models, the Nexus 8, the Nexus 9s are very, very different than what we saw with the Nexus 6s in the original. I mean, they're much more advanced. They're much more human, obviously. It's kind of the big thing.
More human than human.
Exactly. So, there's just so many ideas here that are just really interesting to think about. And I think they're presented in a way that is just super compelling to watch. Just to see how these things are constructed, how the plot is constructed, just to see it unfold the way it does. But, even beyond that, just to even think about the concepts behind the plot, it's just really, really heady material, I think, which is awesome to see in a movie of this scale and size. So I guess Joy is probably kind of, I mean, she definitely very much falls into the whole concept of what is it to be human. But I think Joy's arc is something that for me kind of caught me by surprise, because I think it's actually left pretty ambiguous. I've seen online people have had pretty different readings on kind of whether or not Joy was programmed to be whatever Kay molded her into be, or whether she actually did kind of become autonomous in her own right, even within her programming. And I mean, I'm kind of curious to see how you guys kind of grappled with Joy's arc in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's an interesting question to think about. I guess it's kind of like Deckard being a replicant. I don't know that really matters, other than as an interesting brain teaser. Certainly things like taking the chip or the satellite out of the whatever the device was that allowed her to come with him certainly indicates, maybe she's going beyond her programming and evolving. And I think that's certainly an interesting concept of what humanity is, what it means to exist.
Or what it means to love.
Yeah. And then, I also could certainly buy the argument that she is whatever the slogan is, whatever you want, sexually, right. Whatever you want. At that point, he certainly has started to want things. Like he's wanted to be the child, and so she's suggesting that he's the child. And then he's doubting that, and then she says, okay, we'll find out if you are. And so she kind of pushes him to find out the things that he wants. But certainly, like the scene with the resistance / prostitute, like that seems like it's pretty far. But I mean, also, obviously, we're dealing with a society of fairly advanced programming when you're talking about memory implants and replicants themselves. So I don't know. I guess I would say I lean towards the evolution of the programming beyond. I mean, it just seems like a pretty sophisticated intelligence, and it is probably evolved beyond that. But I certainly don't think there's any conclusive evidence either way.
No, she just plays a critical part to his development. You know what I mean? And as a character, and it was very touching, and it was, I don't know, man. I really enjoyed her character, but I enjoyed his interaction with her, and it was, I thought it fascinating that you had a replicant who wasn't obviously is not a human, and then now this replicant is interacting with something that's not even physically there. You know what I mean? And that whole, he tries to touch her and he can't quite touch her, and it's just what's my word? Starts with an E. I can't talk.
Enigmatic?
Yes. Enigmatic. That's what I'm thinking. It was very good. And like I said, I was, there's one scene where Joy brings in, like you said, the prostitute, and then you have her trying to replicate the motions of the person who's actually interacting with the physical person. And it was, that whole scene was just very touching. And then you could see the rage whenever what's her name? Love just stomps on that stick and crushes her. And Oh man, I gave me the feels, man. It was hard to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed Kay and Joy's relationship, and like you said, it's got layers upon layers in terms of he's a replicant, she's not real, and stuff like that. Like it's.
But what's real? And I think that's the whole premise of the movie.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Who are we to define what's real? If he finds it real,
right? Well, she's not physically present, I guess. Maybe
right.
If that's a better way to put it. Then, but just her becoming or her seemingly wanting to become a physical presence. She gets the upgrade, and then she goes out in the rain. She kind of just watches it kind of plink off for a little bit, and there's moments like that where I guess you could say that no, she's just programmed like incredibly well, like to make it seem like that, but. At least my initial reading, I was like, nah, I think she is her fully fledged character in her own right. That kind of developed her own motivations and stuff like that. And again, just my reading on it is that, even if he did bring home another Joy, it would become a very different character than the Joy that we got to know in this movie. But I guess the kind of the flip side of that is, the scene towards the end where Kay is kind of staring up at, the big naked pink hologram version of her. And, she calls him Joe in that moment, which to me is kind of like a sticking point where it's just like, oh shit, maybe, just something, even just something like that kind of makes it seem programmed in a way. And it kind of makes you step back and think like, well,
maybe there's a portion of networking there where she can reach out and network with his programming to know that he wants to be called Joe.
Yeah, and not even, honestly, it could be even more non-personal than that, where that's just the go-to name that she's programmed to call someone, or like a replicant that doesn't have an actual traditional common name. Like that's just the way that she's programmed, which kind of makes you, I guess it kind of reframes, I think, the way that, at least that I looked at her character in terms of whether or not she would had become autonomous or not. So there's a lot of shit to deal with in here. I guess kind of the last thing plot wise that I think is really fascinating is Deckard. Like I said, it doesn't come in to the movie until pretty late into the game, but a lot of shit has happened. For a guy that had a kid with a replicant, with Rachel from the first movie, there's just a lot of shit that even Deckard goes through kind of towards the end of this movie when he comes face to face with a reborn, I guess, in a sense, Rachel, courtesy of some de-aging technology that is still not quite there, but is okay when people don't talk. It's kind of how I felt about it.
It was not good.
I'd say it was better than Rogue One's attempt.
It's getting better, man. It's getting better.
It's not terrible, but it's just not there.
I will say when she first popped up, I was like, okay, that looks pretty good. And then when she started talking, I was just like, oh, no, okay, nope, never mind.
I would say maybe better than Tarkin, but not as good as Leia, would be what I'd say about that.
Well, I felt the same way about Leia, where Leia, when it was just kind of Leia's face, it looked fine, but then she only said one word in Rogue One, but it's still just the syncing of the lips is still just seems subtly off. I guess it's just kind of dipping into the Uncanny Valley situation where it's not quite right.
I would have actually probably preferred just kind of a lookalike actress that kind of looked like her and certainly evoked her and dressed and, I don't, it's not a major problem. It's not a major concern of mine. I just don't really like the technology. I just don't think it's there yet, but
yeah. Well, I bring kind of Deckard up because,
that bitch karate chopped that dude in the back of the neck. I'm sorry, I got excited. Cut you off. That bitch karate chopped that dude in the back of the neck. I was like, holy fuck.
I knew something was coming, but that was pretty severe and serious.
Yeah, that shit is.
I really liked A Love. So I just enjoyed the actress and her performance and her character. And so she had some moments like that. I guess her interrogation of the captain or whatever. What was her character's name? Robin Wright.
Her character's name was Robin Wright.
Yeah. Whatever her character's name was. What was, I don't know if just a minor thing. when she's talking to Gosling's character Kay, and she's having a drink, and she kind of like looks at the bottle and says, "What would happen if I finished this?" Was she propositioning him, or what was going on there?
That was my impression. Yeah,
That's what I got.
All right, yeah, it was that just like small little things like that.
She definitely seemed kind of soft on him the whole movie.
She was wanting a little replicant D, dude. He could probably lay it down pretty good.
She probably texted him with "Hey" with 2 Y's. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is definitely a sign. It's a bat signal, if you will.
Okay, all right. Well, let's say I keep getting off track for one reason or another. But for me, I found it interesting that they really kind of kept Deckard and Rachel together and made their togetherness such a big factor in the plot here, because when Jordan and I were watching it, the scene where Deckard and Rachel become intimate.
He's a little rapey.
It's a very rapey scene, and I in some ways I don't know that this necessarily reconciles the rapiness of that scene, but it does. And kind of I was like, okay, well, I guess maybe they're meant for each other or something. I don't know. I was just like, okay, all right.
It's a product of his time and macho, and
yeah,
this was not far removed from when you had to straighten your lady out by giving her a backhand across the face. So it's a product of its time, I think, is what I'd say on that. But definitely to modern sensibilities, a little bit rapey.
There was one scene in particular. I don't mean to hop across the board here. There's one scene in particular that's probably one of my favorite sequences in the whole movie. But Love in particular, there's one scene I can't exactly remember where it popped up, but she's standing there and she's got a tear rolling down her cheek. I really felt for Love, as with her character. What scene was that in? Do you remember? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Is that after she's talking with Wallace or something?
I think no, it's when he cut the replicant that was born.
Yeah.
He cut her belly open. She had a single tear rolling down her eye.
Yeah, that's right. And things like that are what made me think that like she had her own motivations. Like he wants slaves that he can't reproduce in appropriate numbers, but she seemed to want the child as like maybe something meaningful to her as a replicant. That's the impression I got from her character anyways, but I mean, I may be misreading that. Or
I feel like she wants to transcend what it is to be a replicant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She doesn't want to be the slave. She wants to be something more. And then she says a thing to, after she fucks up, Ryan Gosling, after she fucks up Kay over there in the water, she says, "I'm the best." You know what I mean? She fucks him up with the knife. And, It just makes her character very compelling. All the characters were just spot on, man. They were very good, all of them.
I will say, since I think we're probably getting towards the end here, the daughter of Deckard's character, like when she came in, obviously you don't know exactly who she is, and I've never seen her or anything, but I thought she gave like a knockout performance in the 5 or 8 minute scene, and I certainly got the impression like there's more. I didn't like, oh, this is the child, because at that point they're still suggesting. I thought it clearly jumped the gun, which makes sense as a character because he wanted to be the kid, and like, oh, he's the kid, and then we suggest that's to you. And so I didn't think that she was the kid. I just thought she gave a really great performance. And then when it made me think of it because you're talking about the tears with Love. She's got the tears running down her face as the memory plays out, and she views it because obviously she remembers that, and she kind of realizes how much she fucked with Kay's character, and obviously how upset he is. I mean, he stands up and screams. I think it's a scene from the trailer, how emotional he is about it, but she still doesn't tell him. So I mean, that's part of that, like the fact that she has that memory, that the fact that she's probably responsible for implanting that in him, and we don't know the how or the why exactly. Certainly indicates to me that like the plot point, like, oh, I can't go off planet, I have to be concealed in my bubble, is probably a ruse. So I feel at some point she's contacted and kind of informed of who she is and how things are. But I just thought she gave a great performance in a smaller role. I don't know like if they were intending to do more with her character in any potential sequels or not, but I thought she would have been a good actress for that if they did.
Do you guys have any particular sequences that really drove anything home for you?
To the end. I mean, the end just, it fucking nailed it for me. We talked about the daughter. I agree. She was fantastic, and just to see Deckard reunited with her, and to see Kay kind of realizing that, maybe I'm not the child, but I can still make it, I can still do something that separates me from the other, replicants, that separates me from my programming, to basically kind of give his life to get Deckard to his daughter. And then you have a reprise of Tears in the Rain from the first movie soundtrack play as he maybe dies on the steps there while Deckard gets reunited. Like, boom, right in the feels. That whole sequence just, I mean, it ties together the movie beautifully, and it's too good, man. It's too good. OP. This movie is OP.
I liked the overall and the scene. I will say, like, the idea of did he or didn't he die feels a little cliche to me, and I kind of get it. It leaves it open and it leaves it to interpretation, but I don't know. I'm not in love with the concept in general, but the overall scene I really liked for sure. I don't know that I have a particular scene or sequence that stands out to me. I mean, there were a lot throughout that I really enjoyed, but I think I commented after I saw it that it felt kind of like Drive was Gosling's audition for this, because it's a movie in my mind that I love, and I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and I've loved it every time. It hasn't certainly gotten any worse for me, where a lot of the depth in the presentation was silences and looks and glances and just kind of understated. And so I felt like there was a lot of that. And when I talked about earlier, there were 20 or 30 minutes they could have cut of just long extended scenes, but I'm glad they didn't, because I just think that it just the mood that was presented by that, the atmosphere, which is what I said was, I think, is important in like the original, the atmosphere. I think they created the atmosphere that made it something special.
My favorite part, I think, is when it was almost a callback to the first movie where Deckard goes to I can't remember the first owner of the replicants' names, but Tyrell, yes. He goes to Tyrell Corp, and he they introduce him to Rachel, and they go to the pyramid and everything else. I really enjoyed Love walking Kay through the pyramid, and you get a glimpse at the other models, and then you see it almost looked like an embryonic form of the guy in the very beginning, the guy with the little glasses, the big man with the little glasses. You know what we're talking about here? Sapper, yeah. There's like a embryonic form of Sapper there, and you progress down the pyramid. He's walking down the steps, and just the whole scene inside the fucking pyramid, man. The pyramid just really just fucking rocked my world, dude. It was so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we do end up watching it again, I think there'll probably be a lot of moments that will stick out to me that didn't stick out to me the first time. I think there's just so much to pull from here that there's a lot of little moments that maybe are eluding my memory right now because it's been a little while since I've seen it. But
are you saying the moments have been lost?
Like Tears in the Rain?
Maybe I am. Good call. Yeah, so... I mean, I think we've pretty much covered, well, I mean, I don't think we've covered all of it, but I think we've covered quite a bit of it, and I think we've had a pretty good discussion here. So just to kind of wind this down, the movie, unfortunately, has not had the box office success that I think equates to, I think, what it deserves, and certainly the critical reception that it's got. It scored about a $32 million opening weekend against its $150 million budget, so that's not a good thing.
Almost like a recall to the first one, right? The first one flopped.
I mean, it's true. And perhaps it was ill-advised to make a sequel to a movie that did not do well in its own right, but did obviously become a cult hit and has inspired many things beyond it. But, giving it such a massive budget perhaps was unwise. I'm glad they did, don't get me wrong. But, maybe we should have seen this coming. But it's unfortunate because... I mean, I think this works extremely well as a companion piece, but it did leave wiggle room there for a sequel. So, I mean, if the powers that be kind of get a little crazy with it and decide to greenlight a sequel, I mean, is that something you guys would be excited for? Or do you think this kind of are you okay with leaving the story here?
I think it's kind of like the first one. I'd be okay if they didn't do anything with it. but if they did, I hope it would explore. I mean, I don't know where you go beyond, because this one right here explored almost the same thematic elements as the first one. You know what I mean? It just redid it. And I would be okay if it did it again. I don't need another one. I didn't need this one. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty neutral either way.
Yeah, I certainly, watching it felt like it was setting up a sequel, like a soon to follow sequel, but at the same time, I don't know that I'd want to watch a Blade Runner War Revolution movie. So even if they did a sequel, I'm not sure that there's a good sequel to make in the immediate future. Something in the further future would probably be more interesting, and so we wait 30 years for that to happen, then we'll be good.
I agree. Like I said, I think this works well as a companion piece, and I'd definitely be interested if they decided to make a sequel. I'd be surprised based on the financials of it. Probably not a sound decision, but I'm glad that we did end up getting this one. If do you guys have any last kind of bits you want to touch on before we kind of give our recommendation? I think it's pretty easy to kind of figure out what we're gonna say as far as a recommendation on how you should see it, when you should see it, and all that stuff. But just before we get to that point, anything else from you guys?
Negative.
That's it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna make a bold statement, and I'm gonna assume that you guys are gonna agree with me. Obviously, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is absolutely a must-see theater experience. IMAX if you can. Jordan and I didn't get a chance to do it the first time around, but
you just wait.
That is a mistake that will be rectified shortly. So it's fucking phenomenal. It is something that perhaps it might be off-putting to certain audiences. It is a movie that's going to make you think. It's a movie that's going to make you sit in a chair for 3 hours, which that alone can kind of put some people off. But there's so much goodness in this movie, and I think it's still wrapped in a package that takes the best of the original Blade Runner and packages it with modern sensibilities that makes it probably a little bit more approachable for today's audiences to kind of wrap their heads around. And so it's going to be one of my favorite films of the year. I don't want to quite say where I want to put that in terms of my how I feel about everything this year, but it's going to be up there. And I feel safe saying that. I feel safe again saying that nothing will touch this in terms of the cinematography, in terms of the visuals, in terms of the atmosphere conveyed, because it's just top notch in every respect. So I don't know if you guys want to piggyback off that and add anything else.
I would say that if you have a movie pass, spend the money and go catch it in the nearest IMAX theater, because I'm the only one that's here seen it in IMAX, and it was absolutely astounding. It was ridiculous. So if you can see it with the movie pass, and that's the only way to see it, go ahead and see it with the movie pass. It's great. But if you can catch it in an IMAX theater, go catch it in an IMAX theater, because it is definitely an experience. I wowould say that it was, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's probably my favorite movie of the year so far that I've seen. It's thought-invoking. The atmosphere is fantastic. The cinematography is wonderful. It's a beautiful movie. It's very well acted. I really can't think of, and I'm excited to see it for a second time to see if I pull more things away, which I know I will. Just because I didn't quite grasp everything that I wanted to with the first viewing. It's just an incredible work of art. It's very good. Go see it in theaters.
It sounds like you guys need to add a see it in IMAX classification to your grading chart, but definitely something I'd recommend seeing in the theater. Personally, I can't speak to the IMAX, but I'm sure it enhanced the experience because the score was, kind of instrumental in the overall. So it's worth it for that alone. But just to experience, if you want to have it now, which I'd recommend, rather than waiting for it. If you want to have it in the best possible light, certainly that's the way to do it.
Well stated. Well stated. So that is Blade Runner 2049, folks. It's an experience you don't want to miss. So Andrew, what have you been up to? Jordan and I have we've been hanging out in Texas for the past week, so we've got kind of the same things to talk about. So we'll let you kind of hold the mic for a couple of minutes and fill us in on what you've been up to this past week.
All right. Well, I caught Blade Runner. It was excellent. It was awesome. Yesterday. I went to the Bed Bath & Beyond and got some curtains for the bedroom, and I hung said curtains up in the bedroom, and I was able to watch, I started American Vandal, and I caught every episode except episode 8. Is that the last episode?
Yeah, I think it's only 8.
Okay, so I've caught every episode except the end there, and American Vandal is outstanding.
Do you know who drew the dicks?
Yes, but if the episode 8 synopsis would tell me anything, I don't have the full picture yet. So there's one scene in particular where he's questioning the girl who drew the dicks, and it was so well acted. It was ridiculous. Kudos to that chick. I don't know her name, and I can't recall her character's name, but it was one long shot, and her eyes slowly, they just got red, and she started crying, and it was just, so good. But there's a lot of comedic relief and everything else. It's an awesome show. It's really, really freaking good.
Just a sidebar. My favorite bit from American Vandal, I think, possibly in the entire show, was the animatic, the hand job animatic episode 2,
where they're sitting on the dock.
Oh my god, I don't think I've seen anything that has made me laugh so hard.
It's pretty good.
Other than maybe Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes last weekend, but oh my god, that was gold.
I mean, the whole the show's hysterical. I mean, everything about it's funny, but the hand job thing was, I LOL'd at that. I did. It was pretty good. But aside from that, I really don't have a whole lot. I started playing FTL again, which is a lot of fun. And that was kind of because I wanted to listen to the soundtrack from Blade Runner again. And I thought that would be a good game to do it to. But aside from that, I think that's pretty much it. I haven't really gotten into anything else. What about you guys? You guys saw one hell of a concert.
Yeah, that's to say the least. So Jordan and I have spent this past weekend at the Austin City Limits Music Festival. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all days full of music.
It is an exhausting but very fun process, is I guess what I'll say about that. I saw a lot of great bands, great performances overall. I don't think anybody let us down in terms of, sometimes you get a stinker where they're not enthused about it, or they're just, having a bad day.
Maybe they're exhausted.
That could certainly be it too. But it's almost like work, being there all day, all weekend. It's not a camp out type of festival, but it's 11 to 10, 3 days in a row, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So some pretty good acts, some stuff we were less familiar with earlier on, but we got to see some cool bands. And the headliners all were pretty good. So I don't have a whole lot of specifics to say other than it was a good time, but it was pretty exhausting. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah. It was an awesome time. Definitely murder for your feet and for your back as well. But we're in the recovery stage at this point. And it's a fantastic time. This is my third time in a row going to it. I think, Jordan, this is your fourth or fifth.
Yeah, I started a little bit late, but 4 times.
Granted, he lives in Texas and I don't, so but it's kind of become my tradition to fly out every year around this time and hang out for a week, spend a weekend at the festival and enjoy all the acts that play. Headliners we got a chance to see were Jay-Z, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Gorillaz. We caught the tail end of the Killers, who were playing the same time as Gorillaz, but and then there's also, like I said, it's all day, so there's a ton of little acts. Not little, that's demeaning, but smaller, I guess, acts that aren't, maybe don't sell as well or maybe aren't as well recognized, and that's not, again, to diminish their talents. It's just they haven't quite gotten to the big stage yet. But it is interesting. I mean, there's been a lot of repeat artists from the past couple of years. Run the Jewels was there a couple of years ago on like a smaller stage at an earlier time. They were here again this year on a bigger stage, just a lot more crowded, and it's cool to see like just awesome acts like that, kind of blowing up and deservedly so. And it's like Jordan said, everyone killed it. I mean, there really wasn't anyone that didn't quite live up to expectations, and it's a blast to go to. It's exhausting. It definitely is exhausting, but I find it's worth it every year. And in terms of value proposition, you really can't get any better than a festival like this. I mean, I saw Chili Peppers actually earlier this year, I think in April back in Jacksonville, and I probably paid $100+ for a ticket to see them and Baby Metal, which Baby Metal's awesome, by the way, just saying. But we paid $250, I think, or so for a 3-day pass, and Red Hot Chili Peppers is one of maybe 20 bands that we got to see, and so $100 for 2 acts versus $250 for 20 acts, and it's not like those 19 acts are slouches. It's a great experience.
Can you pick favorites from each day?
I mean, putting us on the spot. I mean, I've asked Jordan a couple of times, like, who was your favorite? And he's kind of been coy with it. And I think that, there hasn't been any clear cut distinguished, like they were clearly the best or anything like that. If I had to just wing it right now and pick, I would say my favorites for Friday was probably Royal Blood. I really like them. They had some technical issues a couple songs in, but once they got that fixed, they sounded great. Saturday, got to give it to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then Sunday's tough. Run the Jewels was great. Gorillaz were great. Killers, what we saw of them were great too. So I have a hard time picking a winner for Sunday. So I'll give it to a 3-way. Fuck it. Vance Joy was great too. So 4-way tie for Sunday. Sunday was good. Disagree, Jordan? Any thoughts on that?
No, I wouldn't disagree. Yeah, I think I said earlier in this very show that I don't really do favorites very well, even when I've got limited choices apparently. So nobody gave a bad performance. I mean, there's been years where certain people that I'm maybe looking forward to weren't the best show there. But I don't know. I'd say I probably had most fun at Run the Jewels just because it was kind of a weird environment. We ended up mosh pit adjacent, which is not really my thing, but it was kind of an interesting experience. I'm a guy that goes for atmosphere, so it added a little bit of extra atmosphere to the events. But I think probably the most enjoyable acts maybe were the headliners, just because I knew them best. They all gave good performances, which is always satisfying to see.
Right on. Well. We're running pretty long here as it is, but just a quick shout out. Jordan got a Super Nintendo Classic. That's been entertaining him for a while. I should have one waiting for me back home, so I'm looking forward to playing around with that. I know Jordan's, they beat Castlevania, Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
I scummed my way through Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
I hear that shit's hard.
Oh, it's obscenely hard, and I ran out of continues, and I didn't want to restart from the beginning, so that's the solution. When you save scum it, it's really not that hard. It's not that long, but it's just, this is a game where if you get hit twice, you're dead, and if you die 3 times, you use a continue, and you start out with, I think, 5 continues, but you can get more. I still don't know the rules because all the manuals are online, but I don't have the energy for that bullshit. So I kind of just winged it a little bit. Castlevania was a lot of fun. I mean, obviously the NES Classic was huge, but the Super Nintendo is my personal nostalgic hotspot. So these are games I played with my older brother originally, and then Colton kind of came in a little bit later. So they're more fun, like Earthbound. It's just,
Is Earthbound in there?
Yeah, Earthbound is in there. But it's the nostalgic sweet spot. There's also a lot of games I never really got into, like the Kirby games I've never played. I think there's at least 2 Kirby games on there. But there's Donkey Kong Country and there's Mario. It's like I said, it's the nostalgic sweet spot for me. So I've enjoyed playing it, and I've played it probably, even though I've only had it a week, probably played it 3 or 4 times as much as I played the NES Classic.
Mm-hmm. The collection on that Super Nintendo Classic is just absolutely stacked. It is definitely a nostalgic sweet spot, yeah, but it's got RPGs galore. It's got everything you'd want. It's great. I'm looking forward to cracking mine open. I guess that's pretty much it for us. The DC CW shows are back on this week. I think Supergirl's already aired at the time of this recording. Legends and Flash are on Tuesdays. Arrow's been moved to Thursdays. Riverdale's on Wednesdays. Mr. Robot's coming back on Wednesday as well. So it's about that time of the year for all of the fall TV to kick back in, which I'm pretty pumped to dive back into myself. So that's kind of my schedule aside from getting back home and getting back to work, unfortunately. But you guys ready to wrap up?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, first of all, big thank you to Jordan for joining us on our 10th episode. It's awesome to have a third guest. Hopefully it hasn't been too long-winded for our other listeners. But I think it's a lot of fun to kind of bring in a fresh voice, and I think this will not be the last time that we have a guest joining us. So, Jordan, we'd love to have you back at a future undetermined episode when we get a chance, and we'll try to bring in some other fresh faces as well.
Maybe we'll bring you back for Justice League, man.
What an honor! What an honor to be extended.
I had a great time recording with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. And then obviously thank you to all of our listeners who have stuck with us for these past couple months as we've made it to double digits. We look forward to many more episodes in the future, and I guess the next big milestone is a ways off when we hit triple digits. But thank you again for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate the support. You can find us at watchreviewrepeat.com. That's going to be your one-stop shop for everything you're going to need. Got Facebook, Twitter, Gmail, and iTunes, Google Play. Everything is on there. That's the way to do it. Our intro and outro track is called Mechanolith, created by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. That is licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. And that's really pretty much it for this week. Thank you guys again for listening. If you have any thoughts on Blade Runner, the first one, Blade Runner 2049, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? I didn't even get a chance to talk about that. Send us some comments through Facebook, Twitter, or watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Also, just a quick shout out to our buds over at Ink to Film, who just completed their project on Blade Runner. They did 2 episodes on the book by Philip K. Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and then they just covered Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. I haven't had a chance to listen to the movie episodes that they've done, but they did a really great extensive discussion on the book, which is very digestible. It's just over 200 pages, and I recommend anyone that has enjoyed the Blade Runner movies to check the book out, because it's different enough that it's a fresh experience, but it's also something that it's very interesting to see the elements that were pulled from that, for not only for the first movie, but for 2049. So we are not 100% settled on a topic for next week, so we'll just have to keep you guys posted on that as we determine that. That'll do it for me. So, Andrew, you have anything else to add?
No, sir. We'll see you next week. Have a good night. And Jordan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks again.
Yep. Have a good week, guys.